Liberty standpoint, how do you view the two candidates, and how do you think Liberty people should view the two candidates?
All right. I'm going to tell you the truth. Now, you ain't going to like what I tell you, but I like Ron Paul. And I'm a Liberty person, and I was not run as a Romney candidate. I was ran on a separate slate. I was the only Republican chosen that was not a Ron Paul, that was not a Romney designee. I'm going to, as a delegate to the convention, but my position is anything to remove the person who is currently in the White House. I'm going to go down there and try to hold the Republican platform to those principles of liberty, and I have no problem, and I've stood up on the floor and I've raised heck when certain things are done that are against our liberties, and been the only Republican who voted against the DNA. I stood up and said, this is wrong. You can't take a person's DNA until they're convicted. You don't take it when you just arrest them. You wait till they're convicted, then I don't care what you do with them. You know, it was wrong. It's against liberty. I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to do anything and everything I can to make sure that that usurper on the throne is gone. He doesn't belong there. He's ruining my country. He's bringing socialism here. The things that he's doing now is absolutely pathetic with the commercial he's running, that somehow Romney caused some man's wife to have cancer. That is just wrong. It's taken us to a whole new ugly level, and we don't need it. So when I go down there, while I like and I appreciate many of the things that Ron Paul stands for, I'm going to stand behind Romney and say, I want you in there because I can work to try to change some of the things he does. I can't work to change anything that Obama is doing, and I'm not going to do 4 more years of him destroying my country. Yes, sir.
When I look at the two candidates, Romney was for Romney Care, which is pretty much a similar government healthcare sponsored piece of legislation, and it's still being enforced. In 2003, Mr. Romney made it mandatory for all justices of the peace to marry gay people, which is really...
Talking about as a governor?
As a governor. Okay, that's still on the books.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Do you support the 10th Amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so each state has a right to do what that state chooses to do.
Oh, I'm not questioning
okay,
it, but I'm against what he stands for.
I'm against what he did too, but it's a lot different than doing it at the federal level and forcing every state to follow that dictate.
What makes you think he won't do that?
I don't believe that, no, because he stood up and said I made mistakes. He stood up and said that he was wrong. I don't think that his own party would let him do that. I don't think that there is nothing that man could do that comes even close to the destruction of this country that is being done currently by the man in the White House. You know, with this third easement coming out, this young lady's children will be paid for generations to take care of those trillions of dollars that are being run up and this fiat currency. You know, yes, we're absolutely right. You do need an accounting of the Fed because it isn't there. The emperor has no clothes. And so you have to stop the bleeding. And the only way to stop the bleeding is to remove him from the White House. And you think it's ugly today? You wait till 6-8 weeks from now. It's going to be horribly ugly.
I'll ask another question here, and I don't want to.
No,
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing.
Yeah.
This is the way I love this.
Do you think that George Bush Jr. Stopped the bleeding when he got into office for 8 years? Do you really think that?
I stood up and said that what he did, and I said it was absolutely wrong. The Patriot Act took away our liberties. That was wrong. You let the people win when you change our style in our life here, and it was wrong. The Patriot Act, it should be reversed. So no, is he perfect? But as Ronald Reagan said, if I agree with you 80% of the time, then you're my man. And right now, you know, I agree with Obama 0% of the time. Right. There is nothing he has done that has made me feel proud to be an American, and I'll give every ounce of my waking hours between now and election time, every minute of my waking hours to get him out. And unfortunately, that means 100% behind the man that is there. And so I know others disagree with that, but I think if you're not stepping in line to make sure he's out, then you're helping him stay in. It's a light switch. There's no halfway point for me. Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
What is your opinion on drones?
I actually just wrote a piece with the, I sent it out yesterday, and no, they don't belong, and actually I wrote down here, drone-free zone, we need a bill in Maryland for a drone-free zone to say, we're not gonna have any drones, but actually what I said, where the only place I could see drones flying in America, I say you go down to the Mexican border and you put a helicopter place that, where they have helicopters 500 miles this way, and 500 miles this way you put one with tanks, and you put the drone where they build the drones in the center, and in that desert area, do all those military maneuvers. So if you're ever going to be sent overseas in a desert area, you're working there, and you're working at it. You don't have to build the fence, and you're making sure that you're monitoring it. That's the only place I could ever see using a drone in this country, is to monitor our borders to make sure that you don't have terrorists coming in with an atomic weapon, OTMs coming across the border, other than Mexicans carrying something that's going to do a horrible, devastation to some city in America.
I do have a follow-up if
Yes,
you have
sir.
time. Recently, and I'm not sure the exact date, but the United States sent a shipment of gold to the nation of China, which the markings on these bars indicated they came from Fort Knox. The Chinese did a test on the gold bars and found out that they were tungsten coated in gold plate. Needless to say, are there any steps that a state legislature could take in order to force the United States government to have an open audit of Fort Knox and our gold supply?
One, I'd want to know, I would think I would have heard in the international news, because I don't like everything I get here. I listen to the BBC and others to get an interesting take on what's happening internationally. I've not heard that. It'd be very interesting to see the source and see if there's anything to it. I'm not denying that you've heard it, but I'd like to know where it came from. There's nothing the state can do to force the Fed other than require our senators. I've tried to put legislation in that makes Maryland recognize and accept the 10th Amendment. They won't even give it a vote each year. We put it in and it says that we want Maryland to tell the federal government that we assert our 10th Amendment rights. You will not give us unfunded mandates. You will not dictate to us that we will withhold school money or highway money unless we do the certain things that you're dictating that we do. And they won't even let the bill out. So I put a bill in that said every bill has to get a vote, and they wouldn't vote on that bill. We tried, but it's very frustrating.
It came from the BBC and different newspapers, I think in about 14 different European countries that ran it. No major media outlet in the United States would touch it.
But I heard that he figured out how to take care of that. They're going to take care of that. Obama found a prince in Nigeria, and he's going to send him 15.
Well, would it be okay to send those links to your website?
Sure. No, I'd love to read it. I'd love to look at it. Yeah, absolutely.
I have one final question for me that actually kind of ties into this. Next month we'll be talking about nullification, and I guess you've already answered my question as far as what's the threshold or support of nullification from a states' rights perspective inside the Maryland State Legislature. So I guess what I would say is who would be I would prefer to have names, but who would be the biggest obstacles in the Maryland State Legislature to even accept the idea of asserting 10th Amendment rights for the states and asserting our rights?
Go to the committee that you can go to the Liberty vote, because I tell you that all those who voted against it, they got a negative on the committee. And so go to that committee, and usually they're chairs of committees that they go on that committee, because it goes to the Rules Committee. And so they have all these chairs out there. So you can sit there and look at and see every person who voted against it. And you can, I literally heard, and you can get the tape, where a state senator looked out of the group when they were talking about the 10th Amendment and said, I don't want to be hearing no talk about any Constitution. That was in the Maryland House of Delegates, the Senate, where one of the senators said she didn't want to hear no talk about any Constitution.
I think I know who that is.
And if I could, you had a question, sir? Go ahead.
I did. Actually, I wanted to ask you, so I was going to ask you the same thing that Norman did. Just can you give your opinion? Won't happen in Maryland ever, but maybe some other state, Kansas, Montana, or somebody, if it passed their legislature and their governor signed a nullification bill, what do you think would be the national and specifically the federal government's reaction?
1861.
Probably just trying to change the Constitution.
I think we're going to get there, but I don't think we're going to get there through a request for liberty. I think we're going to get there through a frustration over having been sent into bankruptcy.
Yes.
I think states will go bankrupt, and then they will say, it's because of your policies, and we can't follow your policies anymore. And I think that's how it comes to a head, as opposed to somebody standing up and saying, you know, don't tread on me. I think it's going to be that, you know, we can't afford it anymore.
Now, what do you think the Fed's, how do you think the Fed will react?
It depends on who is in office. You know, there are those, you know, if the Liberty group has their way and you have someone who is a libertarian in office, I think that they'll be in the forefront of trying to say, yes, it's there. It depends on who's in the Supreme Court. So, unfortunately, that's what's going to make the determination. It's who, you know, and so what I would like to see happen, obviously, is that, you know, they would be able to say, yes, we recognize states' rights, and the states are able to nullify, you know, things that are done by the federal government that are unconstitutional. If I could, I want to leave you with something with regards to the Maryland, our Bill of Rights in Maryland. So if you get to our Constitution, you write down Article 6. And now, when they put in the Slots Amendment, I said, we don't need a vice amendment in our Constitution. Our Constitution in Maryland has things, and they should make, we have parking regulations for Baltimore City in our Constitution.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's silly.
It doesn't belong there, but there are good things. And in Article 6 of Maryland's Constitution, it says that all persons who are invested with legislative or executive powers of government are trustees of the public, and as such, are accountable for their conduct. Wherefore, whenever the ends of government are perverted, and public liberty is manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may and of right ought to reform the old and establish a new government. The doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and the happiness of man. That's in Maryland's Constitution. That's the kind of things that we should see that are in there. They make your heart sing. They make you proud to be a Marylander, not a vice amendment, not parking regulations, things like that. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to there.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Uh-oh, where'd it go? Oh.
There we go.
Today is Wireless Wednesday. Yesterday was Technology Tuesday. It's like the gremlins live in my office. Okay, so as we go home tonight, just please mark your calendars. We have August 18th, a week from Saturday, a sine wave from 10 to 11. We have on September 12th, we're going to have our movie showing Nullification. And then we're having a Liberty training right here on Sunday, September 30th from 1 to 4. The last thing that I found to leave you with was some words of wisdom from someone who a lot of us admire, Congressman Ron Paul. So have a good night.